handling weed in the workplace. So our temporary employee was fired yesterday for smoking weed in our client's parking lot. And I want to tell you more about that. My name is Catherine Tremblay. With cannabis being legal in Canada for almost a month now, I'm starting to see firsthand the effects that cannabis legalization has had on the workplace. I want to share this particular example as a review of what not to do as an employer. Here's what happened. Our candidate started in a customer service role, a desk job, yesterday. She was performing extremely well. She went out at lunch and openly smoked weed in our client's parking lot, where other employees smoked tobacco. Another employee saw her and reported it. Her direct supervisor then just terminated her immediately, stating that their company has a zero tolerance for impairment and use of cannabis at work. So we learned of the issue after the candidate had already been fired. Our client wanted to know if we knew of her cannabis use, and we did not. As you'll see here, both our client and our candidate could have handled this situation much better. Our client should have called us immediately and told us what happened. We would then have inquired with our candidate about what happened and why. Did you know that the Ontario Human Rights Commission states that the employer has a duty to inquire, not fire? We would have learned that the candidate was prescribed marijuana, if this is true, and we would have set out to gain a much better understanding and set in motion an accommodation plan. We would have verified the medical claim and sought clarification on the validity of the timing of use. Did she have to smoke at lunch? The product choice, could an oil have been used instead? And the location of use, was the parking lot the right space? Were other employees smoking tobacco wanting to smell like weed after lunch? Now, as to our client's position on zero tolerance, this can only be done to relate to recreational use of cannabis. Medicinal marijuana would be considered a prescription like any other prescription, such as insulin or oral chemotherapy or other pain management pills. Now let's discuss our temporary employee. She did not have to tell us about her prescribed marijuana in advance of being placed. Candidates don't tell us they are taking medication for other things, and they don't have to share their medical history. We cannot ask about this pre-placement or at the time of placement for privacy reasons. It would be like asking if someone is pregnant. Once employed, our candidate should have communicated with us. She could have said, I use medical marijuana. Here's my prescription. I use it at lunch due to constant back pain. It allows me to get through the rest of my day. I'm not impaired because ... and where would the client want me to use or to smoke? Our candidate did none of that. She did not communicate, and she made assumptions. It's pretty bold. So what did we do? We emailed the client, we spoke with the client, we explained. The client is now open to a potential human rights complaint, and they may lose if the prescription is true. If the candidate does not provide evidence, we will provide our client with the outcome of the medical questionnaire, and they may reconsider her candidacy. We also spoke with and emailed our candidate with the medical questionnaire specific to medical marijuana. The form will let us know what accommodations are required and if lunchtime use by smoking is essential. For your information, what we heard from our candidate is that she uses marijuana for a medical condition, but it sounds like it was self-prescribed. And as we know, we can't prescribe ourselves marijuana. That won't hold up. On our end, we paid the candidate for the entire week and did not bill our client as a gesture of goodwill while our candidate gets her medical forms completed. I'd like to answer the questions that arose in this particular matter. There were many. Did the candidate have to tell us in advance that they were on medical marijuana or had a prescription for medical marijuana? No. Like any disability, there is no requirement to disclose in advance. Does it matter that the candidate is in a desk job? Yes, because there's no safety concern versus a machine operator where safety would be of greater concern. We still couldn't ask a machine operator if they have a prescription for marijuana. We can't ask this, but the safety element would be more relevant and would complicate the way in which this unfolds. Another question was the candidate allowed to smoke in the client's parking lot? Employers and building owners have the right to say no smoking on or near the premises, including tobacco and cannabis. Some buildings and hotels in particular are creating new areas for cannabis smoking because tobacco smokers don't want to smell like weed. Some employees who smoke tobacco would not want to smell like cannabis when they return to work. Prescription or not, an employer can restrict the location of use. Now, should the candidate have requested accommodation once employed and once they started their job? My opinion is that she should have said something to us and not assumed she could smoke weed near the office. Had she smoked elsewhere, it's possible no one would have known. While an employee does not have to disclose, it seems to me that some dialogue here could have prevented the sudden termination. My point is that if you need to smoke marijuana for medicinal purposes, we need more information to handle it properly. You may be wondering, what would the medical questionnaire actually reveal? It would show us a lot, actually. Was medical cannabis prescribed to the employee as part of her treatment plan? If yes, what was the method of consumption? Ingested, smoked, vaped, oil? When and what time of day would the consumption occur under prescription? I'd want to know the effect and duration of the effect of the cannabis, and if the employee could perform their job and job description using that cannabis in that form at that time. I'd like to know what duties the employee could not perform using prescribed cannabis. I'd also like to know if THC is medically required in the employee's treatment plan or if CBD would be sufficient. If there is an alternative available to medical cannabis, I'd want to know. Some of you may be wondering, if we had known that our candidate used medical marijuana, would we have placed her? The answer is yes. This is like any other medical prescription. Over 200,000 Canadians used cannabis during work, before work, or after work last year with a prescription. We just didn't know it. This is not new. We would have placed the person and we would have been aware of any limitations on the work assigned. And if the limitations were too great, we would take that under consideration for the right placement. Would we disclose the use of medical marijuana in advance of a placement? No. Only if the candidate told us in writing. Some candidates prefer to deal with accommodations in advance with no surprises, but we would not disclose automatically. This would violate both the privacy of the candidate and their human rights. So remember, a company cannot have a policy that states zero tolerance. It can only state zero tolerance for recreational use at work or impairment at work. Prescribed cannabis is the same as prescribed penicillin. I hope this helped you put in context the evolving subject of weed at work. If you'd like a copy of our medical questionnaire as it relates to cannabis, please contact us.